It's been a while since I've reviewed an all-Japan kickboxing event, so today we're going to take a look back at the AJK Destiny 5 show, All-Star Carnival. Taking place on May 20 in 1994, at the Korakuen Hall in Tokyo, it was well into the period of direct competition between All Japan and the K1 organization, which had only recently held its second Grand Prix event. Perhaps as a result, All Japan was likewise starting to lean heavily into international competition, not just having foreigners come over to fight each other, but matching their own Japanese champions against boxers from around the world. As such, this show was advertised as a proxy conflict between Japan and Australia, another Pacific powerhouse in stand-up martial arts. All Japan had done something similar when they held a 1992 event in Las Vegas, where the Japanese fighters dominated their foreign competition. Let's see whether they were able to do it again, a year and a half later. We open with a bout in the featherweight division between Takaya Sato and John Kerry. Like all matches of the night, this will be contested under Muay Thai rules, allowing for clinching, knees and elbow strikes. There will be 5 rounds of 3 minutes each. Sato is a rising star in All Japan, currently ranked 3rd in his division with a perfect record of 8-0 with 3 knockouts. He'd attracted attention earlier in the year by defeating the national champ, Wonder Man Murado, and now seems poised for a major title shot. Kerry comes in with a comparable record of 7-0, also with 3 knockouts, and ranks as Australia's number 5 featherweight. Round 1. Kerry strikes first with a right cross that Sato blocks while landing a low kick. Kerry eventually lands the same punch, but Sato absorbs it and tightens his defense. He connects with a slapping kick to John's inner thigh. Kerry sinks a right jab that gets Takaya to back off, and he follows it up with a short but skillful combination. Sato changes tactics, waiting for Kerry to close the distance before grabbing him and landing a knee to the head. John sticks and moves, trying to avoid the same thing happening again, but he's eventually recaptured and absorbs several more knees before the round ends. Round 2. Sato checks Kerry's opening kick and avoids several punches. He clinches and knees again, and Kerry resorts to a takedown to avoid further punishment. It happens again. John is able to throw some knees of his own after getting his leg caught, but seems to be feeling the effects of his opponent's strikes. He lands a glancing blow across Takaya's face before tripping his opponent. Sato connects with several low kicks in quick succession, including one thrown from the clinch. Kerry tries to counter by relying on his boxing, but Sato's kicks are more effective and set up another knee-filled clinch. Kerry suffers a knockdown after yet another kick, then a second one after Sato lands a surprise left straight to the face. Kerry rises again and puts everything he has behind a left overhand, but Sato avoids it, clinches, and sinks another knee for the final knockdown. Takaya Sato wins by technical knockout. This was an entertaining match to open the show, filled with hard strikes and competitive, up to a point. John Kerry was no pushover, but I have a feeling that rules without clinch fighting would have suited him better. Takaya Sato got his shot at the gold shortly thereafter and made the most of it, defeating Atsushi Tateshima to become the 14th All Japan featherweight champion. He competed until 2001, retiring with a record of 19 wins, 13 losses and 2 draws. He currently works as a Muay Thai coach, referee and magazine contributor. Next is the only fully domestic match of the night, determining the number 1 contender for the All Japan welterweight title, currently held by Taka Funaki. It will be Shinji Matsuura versus Keizo Kojima. Matsuura is currently ranked number 2 and fights out of the Tokyo Hokusei Gym, with a record of 6 wins with 4 knockouts and 3 losses. He's on a winning streak but is still the underdog compared to the more experienced Kojima, whose record stands at 16, 9-1 with 8 knockouts. Kojima of Fuji Gym has already held the welterweight championship, having taken it from Funaki in 1992 before losing it back in the following year. We will now see who wants the title more, and who's skilled enough to step up for one of the most hotly contested belts in the company. Round 1. Low kicks are exchanged, and Kojima uses his height advantage to push out of a headlock. More low kicks fly until Matsuura scores a kick to the ribs. He withstands a sweep attempt and shows good defense against Kojima's boxing. He backs out of several clinch attempts and sinks a front kick that unbalances his opponent. Round 2. Kojima slips while delivering a knee, then is unbalanced again by a low kick. Another slip occurs after Matsuura shoves him. Matsuura catches and twists Kojima's foot for a takedown, but falls himself. Some excellent defensive technique by Shinji is followed by a jumping roundhouse kick against the ropes. There's another catch and another slip. Kojima finally connects with a hook and uppercut combo, and he presses his opponent a little more effectively before the round concludes. With the fight beginning to pick up steam, the highlight of the action has been Shinji Matsuura's defense and counter-fighting. It's far too early to predict the outcome, but thus far Matsuura's done a good job of demonstrating the philosophy of martial arts, using speed and technique to match a larger and stronger opponent. Round 3. Kojima intercepts a kick and Matsuura very nearly takes an elbow. Kojima gets in some punches as he comes forward and briefly forces Matsuura into the corner. Shinji takes a straight right, but pushes Keizo down. Kojima keeps applying pressure, and though Matsuura backs up as fast as he can, he has fewer chances to fight back effectively. Round 4. Both fighters start out by avoiding the other's high kicks. Matsuura lands a jab, then a punch to the abdomen. He's doing a better job avoiding punishment, but Kojima still manages to land an uppercut and a body blow. A big right overhand sends Matsuura against the ropes before the bell rings. 5th and final round. Matsuura's evasiveness serves him well as Kojima repeatedly comes forward again, but he takes the worst of a clinch, including an elbow that knocks his mouthpiece out. He retaliates with a low kick that almost looks like a knockdown. Another low kick stifles Kojima as he advances. He keeps trying to force another clinch, but Matsuura socks him with a straight right against the ropes. The fighters are exchanging kicks as the final bell rings. The match should be over now, but the judges are deadlocked in their decision and thus an overtime round is ordered. It's now sudden death. With this round being judged independently of the previous 5, whoever wins it will have won the match. Round 6. A duel of kicks ends with Kojima advancing aggressively, but Matsuura puts up a strong defense and returns counter strikes. He repeatedly avoids the clinch and hits Kojima with a right elbow while bouncing off the ropes. He fails to follow up with a jumping knee, but sinks several right overhands, briefly putting his opponent on the defensive. A straight left breaches Kojima's defenses, but so does an uppercut from Keizo. Another leg trap leads to a slip, stopping the ex-champ's momentum, but he rebounds with a front kick to the face and a high knee to the head. The match ends with the fighters effectively avoiding each other's final attempts at offense. A decision is finally reached, and the judges score in favor of Keizo Kojima, earning him the right to compete for his old championship again. This has been a very skillful match, probably the most technical fight of the entire night. While Shinji Matsuura may have lost, it hardly invalidates his skill and potential, as the story of the fight seems to be the sheer amount of damage he was able to avoid. Kojima didn't dominate his opponent, but his relentless pressure and ability to maintain a game plan makes this a well-earned victory. I don't know if Kojima ended up getting his title shot, but as it turned out, he never held a championship for the company again. As a matter of fact, it was Matsuura who eventually succeeded Funaki as title holder, becoming the 17th welterweight champion in 1995. He later captured the NJKF welterweight championship as well, and now teaches Muay Thai in Tokyo. We move on to the heavyweight division, a category which admittedly hasn't seen a lot of action in Japan throughout kickboxing's existence. It's Australia's number 3 super heavyweight, Steve Arpain, taking on the man who may currently comprise the entirety of All Japan's heavyweight roster, Kaneko Machida, better known by his stage name, Riki-Oh. Arpain has a record of 10-3-1 with 5 knockouts. Machida is 6-5-1 with 4 knockouts, and while he is the less experienced of the two, he's already faced some of the world's top international talent. At this point, he's the AJK's answer to K1's Masaaki Satake, and while perhaps not as successful or well-known, he's definitely found his niche in Muay Thai competition. Round 1. The match very quickly degenerates into a brawl, both fighters throwing big swinging punches until Arpain takes Machida down with a wrestling maneuver. Moments later, the fighters fall during another violent flurry, Arpain landing on top of Machida and striking him on the canvas. For reasons unknown, this doesn't result in so much as a point deduction. Low kicks and knees are exchanged in the subsequent clinch. Machida lands a hard straight to Arpain's face, followed by another clinching knee. He barely avoids a vertical elbow strike, then lands several of his own and a few extra knees in the corner. Arpain stops the onslaught after sinking a knee of his own, but he can't capitalize as the bell rings moments later. This has been a very violent and dirty fight so far, largely thanks to Steve Arpain's outlaw tactics. The referee seems to warn him while he's being attended in his corner, but to Kaneko Machida's credit, he's absorbed everything that the Australian's thrown at him and is still fit to fight. Round 2. Machida sinks multiple knees to Arpain's head, bloodying his nose. Steve fights his way out of another clinch with an overhand, and the action briefly stops so he can be attended by the ringside physician. A low kick by Machida leads to a slip, and he narrowly avoids a knee to the face after they lock up again. A mighty elbow against the ropes forces Arpain to shove his opponent down, but Machida rises and scores the first knockdown with a painful-looking low kick. Arpain looks tired now, running into Machida and sloppily trying to take him down, but he's the one who slips following another low kick. A kick to the head and one to the thigh hurt Steve further, and despite hitting an uppercut, he goes down for the second count following more rough knees. Before he can rise, his corner throws in the towel and Riki-Oh wins via technical knockout. Arpain is so out of it that he doesn't realize the match has ended. This was a brutal fight, less of a Muay Thai match and more of a brawl. But it was also thoroughly exciting and shows to what extent Machida is willing to go to establish himself as a viable international contender. He'd go on to capture the company's inaugural heavyweight title in 1995, thereby becoming one of the first Japanese to hold a major heavyweight championship. We move on to the only women's bout of the night with the long-awaited rematch between Naoko Kumagai and Lisa Smith. They'll be battling for Kumagai's WKA World Flyweight Championship. Kumagai and Smith previously had a classic showdown in Las Vegas, Kumagai emerging the victor, claiming Smith's title and taking the next step in becoming one of Japan's premier KO artists. She's currently 14-5 with 9 knockouts and one of the company's top stars. Smith is a protege of American kickboxing queen Kathy Long, and with a record of 8-1 with 4 knockouts, she's eager to avenge her sole loss. She's also the sole American member of the Australian team. Round 1. The fighters exchange vicious strikes before mutually falling over in a clinch. Kumagai lands a hard left to Smith's jaw and the American goes down, but grabs her opponent around the waist to avoid a knockdown being ruled. A moment later, she catches a right hook and does in fact receive the count. Smith attempts her trademark sidekick to no avail. She tags Kumagai with a left hook, but must accept a couple knees in return. A left mid-kick staggers Lisa, and though she squarely connects with a kick to Naoko's head, the champion absorbs it and immediately clinches for more knees. Smith attempts to escape by turning away, but Naoko holds on and drives her knee into her opponent's ribs and abdomen until Smith goes down. As Smith sits on the canvas, Kumagai delivers a strike to her downed opponent's head. Again, this apparent foul isn't acknowledged, and the clearly hurt Smith shakes her head in defeat as she receives the count. Naoko Kumagai retains her championship in dominant fashion. This was one of the shortest bouts on the card, and a complete turnaround from the fighters' encounter in America. While Kumagai's unprotected attack on the fallen Smith likely sped up the end of the fight, the chances of the former champ weren't looking good at all. While fighting in Las Vegas, Naoko took several rounds to realize that Lisa's midsection was a weak point, but this time she absolutely knew where to zero in. Naoko Kumagai went on to become a 3-time world champion. She promoted possibly the first all-woman kickboxing event in Japan in 1994, and retired in 2003 to operate an imports company. Despite her competitive success, she probably remains best known for her appearance in Jackass, the movie. The competitive action breaks in favor of a special exhibition match between Japan's Yu Sugiyama and Australia's Paul Briggs. It's an interdiscipline match, Sugiyama being the 45th All-Japan Karate Tournament champion in the over 70 kg division, and Briggs is the reigning Australian super welterweight kickboxing champ with an impressive record of 32-3 with 20 knockouts. The single 2-minute round begins with Sugiyama exchanging a roundhouse to the head for low kicks. Briggs controls the clinch and throws his opponent to the mat, twice, and then 3 times. He places Sugiyama in the corner with a front kick, then causes another slip. Sugiyama lands some punches to the face and narrowly escapes the full force of a back-spinning kick. The exhibition ends shortly thereafter with Sugiyama taking strikes in the corner. It's automatically ruled a draw, and both fighters bow to each other in a show of respect. There's not much to be said about this encounter, which mainly served to highlight the skill and strength of Paul Briggs. I don't know if Yu Sugiyama ever entered into the world of kickboxing again. Later this year, Briggs would have his first foray into professional boxing, the sport that would come to define his career. As of this posting, he's ranked by BoxRec as the 5th greatest Australian light heavyweight of all time and the 6th greatest light heavyweight in all Asia. We return to competition with Kensaku Maeda meeting John Ford. Ford, no relation to the film director, is the Australian featherweight champion, and enters with a good record of 14-2 with 4 knockouts. Maeda is 15-6 with 7 knockouts, and arrives as All Japan's #1 featherweight. He had until recently been the champion, but lost the title about 6 months ago to rival Atsushi Tateshima. Like Naoko Kumagai, he's established himself as one of All Japan's rising stars, set apart by his strength and aggressiveness. Round 1. Maeda gets the early advantage with a dangerously close roundhouse and a painful low kick. He avoids a retaliatory roundhouse and drives forward against the ropes by going low again. A couple flurries of punches from Ford don't affect Maeda, likely because John's throwing them entirely from the shoulder with little strength. Maeda clinches forward against the ropes and lays in with one knee after the other. He kicks high and low, hurting his opponent all the while, and even lands a right hook for good measure. Maeda then focuses on kicks to the body while John ineffectively continues punching, and the round ends in a clinch. Round 2. An extremely confident Maeda opens with a jumping kick. A roundhouse kick from the Australian misses when Maeda pushes him back with his foot. Ford finds himself clinched in the corner and goes down following a hard knee. He regains his feet and manages to sink some knees of his own, but falls again following a patella to the solar plexus. The referee literally shoves Maeda to the neutral corner before administering the count, but Ford stays on the canvas and Kensaku Maeda wins via knockout. This was a one-sided mismatch which mainly goes to highlights John Ford's shortcomings. I don't doubt that he's had better fights, but tonight, he was stiff and ineffective, throwing particularly poor punches while sticking out his chin. Maeda was toying with him by the second round. He'd go on to demonstrate his skill with better matched opponents, and would have a particularly long run with the WKA World Super Featherweight title before retiring to coach kickboxing. After a relatively short night, the main event arrives in the form of Atsushi Tateshima vs Kelly McKnut. Despite arriving with a record of 17-2 and as the Australian Super Featherweight title holder, McKnut has to be considered a major underdog against one of the top horses in the All Japan stable. Tateshima, 21, 9-2 with 17 knockouts, has been with the company since its rebranding from the All Japan Kickboxing Association in the late 80s, and he's defeated top stars like Takahiro Shimizu and Kensaku Maeda. On the international front, he's been one of the federation's foremost weapons against boxers from Thailand, and less than a month ago had defeated the Dutch champion Michael Lufat. McKnut had better realize what he's up against. Round 1. The very first low kick seems to hurt McKnut, who fights back with fists and very narrowly blocks a kick as he slips. He slips again, and would have done so for a third time had the ring ropes not caught him. Tateshima slips himself while delivering a kick, but is back in control within moments and keeps his opponent against the ropes. Another slip for McKnut, followed by a stinging low kick. He seems to fall of his own accord after Tateshima delivers a flurry of punches, and he receives a count for this. Tateshima lays in hard afterwards, and McKnut suffers a slightly more believable knockdown. Another slip for the Australian, eliciting laughter from the audience. McKnut goes down one more time following a hard right hook, and the referee opts to end the match, maybe out of mercy, and awards the TKO victory to Atsushi Tateshima. This was by far the least competitive bout of the show. Kelly McKnut was utterly outclassed by his prestigious opponent, having no answer whatsoever to anything Tateshima did to him. It's a disappointingly one-sided way to end the event, but it ensures a clean sweep for Team Japan and adds to the legend of Atsushi, who remained one of the company's stars until the new millennium. He fought until the age of 47, retiring in 2019 to focus on operating his gym in Funabashi City. AJK's All-Star Carnival feels a lot like the 1992 show I keep referencing, because like Las Vegas, few of the visiting fighters could compete effectively with the Japanese boxers. I don't think this was necessarily calculated, since the Australians were experienced in Muay Thai and had accomplishments comparable to their opponents, but there were few instances when it seemed like they had a genuine chance. Paul Briggs was the only fighter who could have fought at the same level, but All Japan was experiencing a dearth of middleweights at this time, and Yu Sugiyama's involvement feels like a concession. The only truly competitive match was the #1 contender contest between two Japanese fighters. There is something entertaining in the one-sidedness of the show, and fans of All Japan's fighters should check it out by default. It's short, violent and breezy, easy to enjoy within an hour and requiring little investment. That said, as K1 would come to exemplify international competition in the heavyweight division, it's not surprising that they would quickly surpass the AJK, which for all its talent would eventually be little more than a national league, while its competition took the sport into the stratosphere.